So if Ecdysis' work were successful and we could see any outcome we wanted, John Lundgren talks about this work saving the world. He's said that to me so many times.
What does he mean by that?
The way I understand it is that everything we do kind of comes down to food. Just because we're creatures who are alive and have to eat other things to stay alive, there's nothing you can do that doesn't revolve around food, and food all comes down to soil. And there's like a lot going wrong in the world right now, and sometimes it seems silly to be focusing on soil when there's like so much that seems maybe more directly relevant to our lives. But I believe that like if you don't have a stable food system, you can't have anything else.
But y'all are doing research.
Mm-hmm.
You're not actually restoring the soil, you are doing research on the soil. So can you explain the connection and why the research matters to saving the soil?
Yeah, and that is tricky because sometimes I think it's easy to feel like research doesn't directly make changes, and I sometimes think that, and yet every time, in my life or in any farmer's life, like you want answers to something, you go to research, and research takes a long time and it doesn't always feel like it's making a big impact, but like when I need an answer to a question, I am so grateful somebody out there did the research and has the answer. And I think what we're hoping is that we're going to come out with this big study that shows comprehensively how regenerative agriculture can change the world. And we're going to flood the scientific literature with that information. And people won't be able to look away anymore. It's not going to be a niche thing. It's just going to be a fact that this works better for everybody and for the planet and for food and for health and for farmers' well-being. And so that might be reflected in policy. Like, it's going to be hard to justify insurance policies that support conventional farming if it's so clear that regenerative farming is better. And it might feel safer for farmers to transition toward regenerative farming if there's a lot of rigorous research out there showing that this works and it's a good business decision.
What's the part of the work that you like best?
I love having dirt all over me at the end of the day. My coworkers kind of laugh at me. Some of them feel the same way I do. But I don't know, like I've taken road trips through the Midwest before, but it's nothing like you stop in the middle of a field in Nebraska, you get out, you sit in the dirt for like 2 hours, and by the end of that trip, like I know what Nebraska tastes like and smell like and feels like, and I just feel so happy when my hands are covered in dirt at the end of the day, and I know that I worked hard and I did something, and maybe it's gonna make a difference. Maybe not, but we all have to give it our best shot.
What's a memory that you would tell your grandchildren about because it was so epic or moved you or just stayed with you? Like, what's a story that you're like, I don't believe that happened, or it could be something small, but that really changed the way you think about things, maybe, or was funny. I don't care.
Yeah. I guess I've talked about this before with Ecdysis, but some of our field days. But a really great moment this summer, we were just sitting in this pasture in South Dakota. A rancher was running bison on it, and I kind of looked around and realized, like, I was surrounded by this paradise of wildflowers and butterflies and dragonflies and birdsong, and I had never been in a field that was quite that beautiful. And up to that point, I always kind of thought we had to choose between, like, beautiful nature and farming. I kind of thought they couldn't coexist. And that was the moment that set up a light bulb for me that, like, maybe having these ranchers and these farmers being stewards of the land is our path to conservation and to protecting wildlife.
It's not an either or. You can grow food and you can be regenerative and be beautiful. And it doesn't have to be like in a state park somewhere or a national park.
Because I always worked in state parks and national parks before this job. And that's what I thought kind of was my calling. And I just got frustrated because it felt like to protect nature, you had to fence humans out. And it just doesn't work. And farming doesn't always work either, right? Like, there's a lot of struggle there, with trying to support wildlife and also support livestock. They don't always coexist well. But I think somehow that has to be the answer, and we got to figure it out.
What's a farm that really impressed you? Or a farmer?
What's the name of the farm?
You've been to so many, so I guess it's...
No, I totally know what I'm thinking of. I just can't think of the name. Jacob Springs Farm in Boulder, Colorado, run by a guy named, what's his name? Andre Husny. And it was such a cool farm. Boulder is just an amazing place. And I just was like really taken by this farm and this farmer. He's just such an interesting guy. His family immigrated from Lebanon when he was a kid, and owning land just means a lot to him. And he's just so like, just thinks out of the box. You know, we get out there in the farm, he's showing us his land. He jumps on a horse, bareback, no bridles, flips off his belt and throws it around the horse as like a reins. He's eating the plants out of the field as we're walking along. He doesn't wear shoes anywhere. And his farm is gorgeous, and he had so many different things going on, and he just had so much energy and so much creativity, which we saw on a lot of the kind of the urban farms in Boulder. But I was just like, that's the kind of person I want to be. Like, I just want to kind of break all the rules and have some land and just try wild things. It's really fun. Yeah.
What do you wish the rest of the world knew about what you know now? Like, what do they not understand about the work you do or this world you live in?
There's so much I didn't understand, 3 months ago.
Yeah.
And I think maybe this is similar to what I said before, but in the circles I used to run in, I used to have a lot of very environmentalist friends, but very different kinds of environmentalists. And really, like, the thought process there was like, humans have to stay out. The only way we can protect the earth is if we just minimize human impact as much as possible. And the idea that I've come to understand this summer, which, sort of a very different vision of the environment, is humans being, like I think Charles said this week, being co-creators and being partners in building a better world. And that's really exciting. I mean, I think it's sort of damaging to us, to like a kid like I was, this little kid, like wanting so much to like save the world and feeling like I was the problem, like humans are the problem, and I couldn't escape that. And there's so much hope in this idea that like humans can be the solution, and we can be good for the planet, and it can be good for us, and we can work together. I want people to believe that.
And you believe it because of this work and what we've witnessed?
Some days I'm not sure what I believe,
Yeah.
But some of these farmers have made me rethink what's possible.
Yeah. So you spent 2 days here on Gail Fuller's and Lynette's farm. What did you get out of it, or was there any takeaways for you, or it's still too soon?
So many takeaways. I loved some of the conversations and the speeches that revolved around kind of the idea of waiting and listening and paying attention, and how much we want to do and do and do, but sometimes there's a lot of value to doing less. I'm not a patient person. It's really hard for me to sit and wait, but I think a huge part of land stewardship is being willing to sit with land and not take control all the time, and not always do something, and just watch and listen and see what happens.
What do people not understand about the Ecdysis Foundation and Jonathan and what he's doing, Lundgren? And I don't know him personally, so all I've heard is, from Gail and from y'all.
A lot of people are very confused when I try to explain what I do, because we don't work for the government, and we don't work for a university. And the idea that we're just a bunch of people working for a nonprofit who want to solve problems and we want to help farmers, and that we don't go through any third party to do that. We just go to the farmers and we help them as much as we can.
So it's truly free range, independent research.
Yeah, and I've never seen anything quite like that. Like, we have so much freedom to research what we want to do, and to raise money the way we want to raise it, and to try new things, and we don't have tons and tons of paperwork to go through before we can like try something new. And it's really exciting, but I think sometimes people are skeptical of that. Sometimes they just don't understand, like, how can you just be independent researchers? But yeah, it's a really exciting world. There needs to be more groups like that.
So if there was someone who heard what you just said and went, but why should I give money to this? What would you say to them? Someone with money or resources. What would you say?
I think if you don't understand why farms are important, which, as like growing up a city kid, I didn't really understand why farms are important, you need to go spend time on farms, and eating the food that comes out of farms, and sitting on the land. And I think there are parts of this that can't be justified, in words. It's about having a relationship to land, and that's something that you can't explain and you can't logically convince someone why that matters. But I think everybody needs to go out there and be on the land and form a relationship to it.
So let's say I did fund this research. What would I say if it was successful? What happened because of it? What do you want? I mean, save the world is nice, save the soil is great, but is there something like, if I'm talking about the research in retrospect, what would I be saying it did what?
Right. So I think the hope is that we do this research, we are able to show the impact that regenerative agriculture has on land, and we can quantify it, and we can hit all the scientific benchmarks. And we've also built a really strong community among regenerative farmers who maybe felt like they were alone before and are now realizing they're not alone. And the reason I think that matters is, I read these terrifying predictions that in 50 or 60 years, we're not going to have soil in America. We can't grow food, right? And that's not that long. I'll be alive in 50 years probably. I might have grandkids. The idea that America can't grow food seems like it should be talked about a lot more than it is. This seems like a big problem. I remember reading that the first time when I was in college, and why is no one talking about this? And so the idea, when we say save the soil, what we're saying is when I am retired, do I want to still have food to eat? It's that important.
Is there anything I didn't ask you that I should have, that I totally missed, that because of the work you've done, that most people don't know?
How do I put this? We're doing research, and sometimes I think we go into a place and people kind of treat us like heroes, and these farmers are so much more important than anything we do. We're just writing up what they do, and we have some ins to the scientific community that can be helpful, but we're not doing the work. The farmers are doing the work, and it's so incredible, and they inspire me every single day. And I just hope that our work points to them.
So maybe if you had a magic wand, you would want to tell more farmer stories? Am I reading between the lines, or is that true?
Someone should definitely tell the farmer stories. Maybe that's me. I don't know. Yeah. We'll see. But
as you're going around, really capturing those stories and becoming the reason where sometimes there's no time, but maybe in between the testing you can grab a video like this for 5 minutes.
That's actually a really good idea. Yeah. I should do that.
And it adds up.
Yeah.
Because you probably go to one farm a week, or...
Oh, in the summer we went to 3 farms a day.
Yeah, so when you do it next time, maybe...
That's a good idea. I like that a lot.
Or in your off season, go back to the ones that really stuck with you, where the pasture was amazing, or the farmer was amazing, and then do this kind of stuff with them, because they'll talk to you, whereas they wouldn't talk to me or someone they don't know, but you've built that trust. So, and you can have a deeper conversation because of the research lens, that no one's ever asked questions like that before, because you know which questions to ask, and it would be intellectually stimulating for them as well.
I'm learning what questions to ask. I'm still pretty new. I don't know what I'm doing.
Whatever you're curious about, or whatever you think someone in the city that grew up like you but didn't have your lived experience would want to ask. But I think that would be neat. I would want to watch that.
Right.
We got to do this. Because what I see is a lot of airbrushed, overproduced farmer stories that are putting them on some pedestal where it's one farmer and no one else can do that because this farmer is almost like a freak of nature.
Right, you get these celebrity farmers.
Which and then
it's cool, but they're kind of
and that creates resentment. And I want stories of regular farmers who struggled and fell down and dusted themselves off and were conventional and maybe they had one regen plot and then they went.
There's so many farmers who are
experimenting
in the middle of all this. We want it to be really black and white. Are you regenerative? And it's not it's not an either or. There's just all these farmers trying things and slowly changing and not really knowing what they're doing like the rest of us. It's all just this big gray area.
And I think if you could bring that shades of gray to the conversation, no one's doing that.
It's really important.
And you could ask it almost from a different lens because you know their farm almost as well as they do in a different way. Because you've seen the results of their labor and you can almost tell from the bugs what they've done. So it's like someone takes a blood test and can tell you stuff about your...
Yeah, right.
You're like a a soil health diagnostic.
It's funny because it's so easy for us to just jam a soil core into the dirt and pull it up. And most of the farmers have never seen their own soil below, a few inches. Which why would they? But it's always fun for me to see how exciting that is for them, just to see what they've been doing for all this time, because we had a tool that could just make it visible. It's that simple sometimes.
So do they value the research? Or do they not, do they ask you about questions about it?
Sometimes. A lot of the farmers will spend the whole time out in the field just watching us and asking questions and helping us take the samples.
But they have a lot of people coming and asking for data, universities and all kinds of companies. Why do they let you all in? Why are they so excited about your research to where it's oversubscribed?
I mean, I'm not probably the best person to answer all these questions. Like my bosses
Yeah.
are the ones. I just kind of show up and I do what they tell me. But I think, from what I've heard from conversations, that, like I said, because we're independent, because we're a nonprofit, we're not, I don't know,
trying to make money off of them.
we're not trying to make money. We just want to know, and we want them to know, and we're giving their information right back to them. It's for them, and it's by farmers and it's for farmers. Like John is a farmer, and a lot of the people who work for us come from farming backgrounds, and some of us don't, but all of us are there for the purpose of supporting small farmers. And I hope that comes across.
Thank you. This is amazing.